You think it's just hair, don't you? Just strands, just something that grows and falls, something you cut, comb, wash, color, and forget about. But it's not that simple. Your hair carries stories you don't even notice. Every lock, every strand is a record of where you've been, what you've endured, the days you wanted to hide, the nights you wanted to be seen. It's the crown you never asked for, but one you wear every single day. You think stories are only written in books, carved into stone, or whispered in songs. But the truth is, your story is already hanging off your head, dangling in strands that most people overlook. Hair isn't just something that grows. It's something that records. Like the rings in a tree trunk. Every inch carries a timeline, a silent journal of who you've been and what you've gone through. People pass you by and think they see just a hairstyle, just a color, just a length, but no, they're seeing chapters, some of which even you've forgotten. That curl, that wave, that strand. It's been with you through tears, through laughter, through sleepless nights, and long days that blurred into one another. Hair is a living archive of your chaos, your struggles, and your triumphs. It's funny, isn't it? How hair grows without you telling it to, like it has a will of its own. You cut it, it grows back. You burn it, it remembers. You change it, and yet it insists on being part of your identity, whether you want it or not. And when people see it, they're not just seeing hair. They're reading you like a book you didn't mean to publish. That time you chopped it all off because you were done being the same person. That wasn't just scissors. That was a scream. That night you dyed it because you couldn't stand the reflection staring back at you. That wasn't vanity. That was rebellion. Every decision you made with your hair was a confession, whether you spoke it out loud or not. People like to think they understand you, but most of them only look at your surface. They don't hear your thoughts. They don't live your nights, but they catch the signals you didn't mean to send. Your hair becomes their first impression, their uninvited entry point into your world. They see messy and think careless. They see neat and think controlled. They see wild and think untamed. They see shaved and think defiant. They build entire stories about you based on the strands that frame your face. And the cruel irony is, sometimes they're right, because your hair has been telling on you the whole time. And it's not just about the present, it's about the past. Your hair remembers things you don't talk about. The fingers that ran through it when you felt safe. The fists that grabbed it when life wasn't so kind. The hours you spent in front of a mirror trying to tame it, trying to change it, trying to figure out if altering the outside could fix what was broken inside. It remembers the days you didn't care and let it fall where it wanted, and the days you cared too much, spending hours just to make it look acceptable to the world. Hair is memory made visible. It's proof of survival, proof of change, proof that you've been moving, growing, evolving, even when you felt stuck. And here's the twisted part. Your hair doesn't just tell your story. It tells their story too. The people who've touched it, judged it, admired it, mocked it. They've all left fingerprints in the narrative. Someone loved it, someone hated it, someone envied it, someone wished they had it, someone told you to change it, someone told you never to. Each opinion, each touch, each comment got woven into the way you see yourself when you look in the mirror. Your hair became a battlefield where the world's expectations and your own identity collided. And you thought it was just hair. But nothing about it is just. It's the crown you didn't choose but can never take off. It's the flag you wave, even when you're silent. It's the journal that records every season of your life without asking for your permission. You might ignore it, but the world doesn't. They're reading it. They're interpreting it. They're hearing the story your hair is telling, whether you open your mouth or not. And if you stop long enough to really think about it, you'll realize your hair has been the loudest storyteller you've ever had. Screaming truths you didn't even know you were ready to admit. Every style you've worn was more than fashion, more than a whim, more than a way to fit in or stand out. It was a declaration, loud and unapologetic, even when you didn't mean for it to be. You see, hair is one of those things you can't hide. Change it and people notice instantly. Keep it the same and people notice that too. Either way, it speaks before you ever get the chance to open your mouth. That cut, that color, that curl or straight line, it's your identity announcing itself, whether you wanted the world to know or not. Think back to the times you decided to try something new. Maybe you chopped it short, sharp, and bold. Did you notice how people suddenly treated you differently? Some called it brave. Some called it reckless. Some couldn't stop staring, and some couldn't stop whispering. That wasn't just about hair. It was about you daring to rewrite the story they thought they already knew. It was about sending a message. I'm not who I was yesterday. Every style is a shift in narrative, a new chapter, a different angle of the same character. And when you made those changes, whether you admitted it or not, you were telling the world, watch closely, I'm evolving. And even when you didn't change it, when you kept it long, neat, untouched, do you know what that said? It told the world you valued tradition, or stability, or maybe safety. Maybe it said, you didn't want to draw attention. Or maybe it said, you wanted to keep a part of yourself the same, no matter how much everything else changed. People saw that and built their own story about you, because every strand is a statement. They saw structure, or discipline, or resistance to change. You weren't just wearing hair, you were wearing identity. And the funny thing is, people caught it without you ever explaining. It's wild, isn't it? How society ties so much meaning to it. Women cutting it short, it's rebellion, they say. Men growing it long, it's defiance, they say. Dye it neon, it's freedom. Shave it all off, it's power or maybe pain. Every twist, every braid, every wave, every lock, they all scream something louder than your own words. Even silence becomes noise when it comes to hair. Let it grow wild, and people will say you've let yourself go. Or maybe you've set yourself free. Tame it into perfection. And they'll say you crave control. Or maybe you're suffocating under expectations. No matter what you choose, it's a declaration stamped onto your very head, broadcasted whether you agree or not. And deep down, you know it. That's why it matters to you more than you let on. That's why a bad haircut feels like the end of the world. Why changing color feels like a rebirth. Why running your fingers through it in frustration feels like tearing at your very soul. You know it's tied to who you are. You know it reflects what you're going through. You've seen how people's eyes change when you change it. Suddenly they see someone bolder, sharper, freer, wilder. They don't just see hair, they see you differently. That's why you can't pretend it's just style. Style is language. Hair is a dialect of identity, one of the most visible ones you own. The truth is, your hair has been declaring your identity your whole life. As a child, it showed innocence, vulnerability, the raw version of you. As you grew older, it morphed with your choices, your phases, your mistakes, your courage. Each phase of your life had its hair to match, whether you realized it or not. You can look at old pictures and instantly know what season you were in, what mood carried you, what identity you were trying to live in. It's the constant witness, the one accessory you never took off, the one crown you couldn't avoid wearing. So when you think of your hair as just hair, remember this. Every time you touched it, changed it, hid it, revealed it, you were making a declaration. You were announcing to the world, this is me right now. This is what I feel. This is what I want you to see. And maybe the most unsettling part, even when you tried to stay silent, your hair spoke anyway, telling truths you didn't dare to say out loud. Change in hair is never just about the strands. It's about the soul screaming for air. You see, people don't wake up one day and decide to chop it all off, or dye it a color the world can't ignore, for no reason. There's always something deeper clawing at them. Pain, rebirth, freedom, anger, growth. Hair becomes the battlefield where those feelings show themselves. When life pushes you to the edge. When you've been beaten down. When the old version of you feels like a coffin. The scissors become a weapon. The dye becomes war paint. And suddenly, what looks like just a style change is really your identity cracking open and demanding to be seen. Think about the times you've seen someone walk in with hair so different you almost didn't recognize them. That wasn't just about looks. It was about transformation. Something inside them shifted. A heartbreak, a breakthrough, a loss, a victory. Whatever it was, it forced them to shed the old version of themselves. Cutting hair is like cutting ties with what no longer belongs. Growing it out is like reclaiming power that was once stolen. Changing the color is like painting over scars the world never bothered to see. Every change is loaded with a truth the voice couldn't carry, but the strands could. And people notice. Oh, they always notice. The ones who whisper about how drastic it is, the ones who say you've lost it, the ones who say you've never looked better. They're all reacting to the declaration you just made without words. They see that something in you has shifted, and it unsettles them. Because when you change your hair, you're not just altering appearance. You're altering perception. You're forcing them to meet a version of you they weren't prepared for. And sometimes that shock is the point. Sometimes the change is the warning. Sometimes it's the invitation. Sometimes it's the liberation. But it's not only about rebellion. It's about survival. Because when you're drowning, when you feel invisible, when you're stuck in cycles that crush you, sometimes changing your hair feels like grabbing hold of something you can control. Life might steal everything from you, but those strands, those are yours. And when you reshape them, you're declaring to yourself and everyone else, I'm still here. I still get to decide who I am. I still have power. That's why change in hair feels like therapy. Why it feels like a restart button. Why it can shake you awake when nothing else can. And yet, there's fear in it too. Because when you change your hair, you're also killing off the old reflection in the mirror. That reflection carried all your past, all your memories, all the versions of you that didn't survive. Letting go of that isn't easy. It feels like betrayal sometimes, as if you're burying someone who lived in those strands. But isn't that the beauty of it? Hair grows back. It reminds you that nothing is final. That no matter how many times you shed, you'll always have another chance to rewrite, to reshape, to redefine. Hair grows, just like you do. And if you look closely, you'll notice this truth. Every major turning point in your life probably had a change in your hair attached to it. The time you lost love. The time you found courage. The time you broke free. The time you didn't care what anyone thought anymore. Your hair has always carried those moments, loud and proud. Whether the world understood it or not, it was never just strands. It was identity in motion, shifting, growing, breaking, healing. Every snip, every dye. Every choice was a declaration. I refuse to stay the same. So when hair changes, it's not vanity, it's confession. It's the rawest form of telling the world, I've been hurt, I've been reborn, I've been changed. And you might think people only see the outside, but deep down, they feel the shift. They can sense the story written in the newness. And isn't that the real power? Hair gives you a way to announce the revolution inside without ever having to say a word. People notice your hair before they notice your eyes, before they hear your voice, before they even decide if they're going to listen to a single word you say. That crown sitting on your head becomes the first chapter they read about you, whether you wrote it or not. They don't ask questions. They don't wait for explanations. They assume. They build their judgments like scaffolding around your hair, and from there, they decide who you are. It's the cruel comedy of perception. The world doesn't see you. It sees the signals you didn't even know you were sending. Messy hair. They say you're careless, lazy, maybe lost. But what if that mess came from nights of sleepless battles, from giving your energy to survival instead of appearances? Neat hair, polished and perfect. They say you're disciplined, serious, maybe even cold. But what if that order is the mask you wear to keep people from seeing the chaos behind your eyes. Long and flowing. They think freedom, sensuality, wild spirit. But maybe you've just been too tired, too distracted, too unwilling to cut away what's familiar. Shaved down to nothing. They say rebellion, power, confidence. But what if it's the aftermath of pain, the release of weight you couldn't carry anymore? The point is, people judge. And they judge fast. They don't wait to understand the story. They fill in the blanks themselves. Your hair becomes their shortcut to defining you, a visual label they slap on without hesitation. And the sickest part, once they decide, they treat you accordingly. Walk in with a bold new style, and suddenly they speak to you differently. Look at you differently, value you differently. The same person, the same soul, the same heart, yet treated as someone entirely new. All because the strands on your head changed their script. It's almost laughable how much weight people give to what they see. They don't realize that your hair is just the mask you let them interpret. They think they've figured you out, but all they've really done is expose their own bias. Because hair doesn't define you. It reflects you. It carries hints of who you are, whispers of what you're going through, shadows of what you've endured. But it's not the whole truth. It's only the cover of the book, and most people never bother to read past the first page. And yet, you can use that. That judgment, that instant categorization, it can become your weapon. If people are going to decide who you are based on your hair, then why not choose the version you want them to meet? Why not let the crown on your head broadcast the identity you're ready to step into? They think they're seeing you, but really, they're seeing the version you've chosen to reveal. That's power. That's control. That's turning their shallow judgment into your stage. But don't get it twisted. It cuts both ways. If you let the world's opinions define you, if you let their whispers about your hair dictate how you feel about yourself, you've already lost. Because then your identity becomes a puppet pulled by the strings of their approval or disapproval. And you weren't made for that. You weren't meant to let other people's first impressions chain you down. Your hair is not their canvas. It's yours. Their judgment is just noise, and if you let it, that noise will drown out the truth of who you are. Still, it's hard to ignore, isn't it? Hard not to notice the shift in the room when you walk in with something new. Hard not to feel the stares, the comments, the laughter, the praise. It all piles up, reminding you that whether you like it or not, your hair is a signal, and signals get read. Sometimes wrongly, sometimes harshly, sometimes in ways that sting more than you'd ever admit. And yet, beneath all of it, the power remains with you. Because as much as they judge, as much as they label, as much as they assume, they're reacting to a choice you made, not one they did. That's the twisted beauty of it. People will always judge your crown before your face, but they're only reading the story you've chosen to write in those strands. They think they know you, but they're really just audience members staring at the costume, not the soul wearing it. And while they keep judging the cover, you're the one holding the pen, deciding how the rest of the story unfolds. Hair has memory, whether you realize it or not. It's not just dead strands hanging off your head. It's a living archive of where you've been, what you've carried, who you've let close enough to touch you. Every lock is a string tied to a moment, and even if you don't think about it, your hair remembers. The way someone once ran their fingers through it when they said they loved you. The way you pulled at it when your mind felt like it was tearing apart. The way you cut it off after something broke inside you. Each strand is a reminder, a witness to the story you've lived. Think about the times you've stood in front of a mirror, staring at yourself, knowing you weren't really staring at the hair. You were staring at the memories stitched into it. You knew that cutting it meant letting go of someone who was still lingering in your reflection. You knew that dying it meant covering up the person you used to be, trying to bury their ghost under a brighter shade. You knew that keeping it the same meant clinging to something familiar, because the world around you was shifting too fast. And you weren't ready to lose one more piece of yourself. That's not vanity. That's memory management. The kind that sits heavy on your shoulders. And the strangest part, hair grows whether you want it to or not. It keeps moving forward, even when you're stuck in the past. That's why it feels strange sometimes when you run your fingers through it. You're touching the present, but you're also brushing through months, years of silent history. The tips carry the weight of old seasons. The roots carry the freshness of new beginnings, and together, they remind you that you're always living in two timelines at once. The you who was and the you who is. But it's not only your memory, it's the memory of everyone else, too. People remember how your hair looked when they met you, when they fell for you, when they hurt you, when they left you. Your hair becomes a trigger in their minds, the same way a song or a scent can rip open old wounds. They might not admit it, but they remember you not just by your face, but by the way your hair framed it. It's part of their memory, just as much as yours, and that's why when you change it, it unsettles them. Because when you change your hair, you rewrite the version of you they've been holding on to. You steal their memory and replace it with something new, and whether they like it or not, they have to accept that the person they thought they knew doesn't exist in the same way anymore. And isn't that the cruel beauty of it? Hair reminds you of the past, but it also gives you the power to redefine the future. It carries the fingerprints of every hand that touched it, every moment that scarred it, but it also grows fresh, untouched, unmarked. You can't erase the memories that linger in the strands, but you can always create new ones. That's why people cling to it. That's why it matters so much, even when they pretend it doesn't. Because deep down, they know their hair has been the silent witness to every season of their life. The one thing that's been with them through every rise and fall. It's the reason why letting someone touch your hair feels intimate, even dangerous. Because they're not just touching fibers. They're touching your history. They're brushing against the weight of your memories, whether they understand it or not. And when you pull your hair back, hide it, cover it, it's not just about appearance. It's about protecting something sacred, something too personal to share with eyes that don't deserve to see it. Your hair is personal, not because it's pretty, but because it remembers more about you than you sometimes want to face. So when you run your hands through your hair, when you stand in front of the mirror, when you think about changing it or keeping it the same, you're not just dealing with a style. You're dealing with memory. You're holding a timeline. You're touching every version of yourself that's ever lived, every moment that's shaped you, every person who's tried to leave their mark on you. And whether you realize it or not, your hair has been keeping score. It's funny how the loudest things are the ones that never make a sound. Your hair doesn't talk, doesn't shout, doesn't scream, but it speaks louder than most of the words that have ever come out of your mouth. You walk into a room, and before you even breathe, people already know something about you. They catch the signal. Maybe it's wild and untamed, sending a message that you don't care what they think. Maybe it's sharp and styled, telling them you've got control, or at least you want them to. Funny thing about timing, isn't it? You stumble across something, and it feels like an accident. Like you were just scrolling, wandering, wasting minutes you'll never get back, and suddenly, this. Right here. Right now. Almost like the universe has a sick sense of humor, dropping the right words in front of you at the exact moment you can't ignore them. Maybe you call it coincidence. Maybe you call it chance. But deep down you know better. This isn't random. This was set up, placed here, arranged in a way that makes you stop, blink, and feel like someone's been watching you closer than you'd like to admit. Nothing you've faced was random, though you've probably spent half your life believing it was. You sit there thinking, why me? Why now? Why this? As if the world just tosses dice and lets them roll however they please. But no, look closer. Every cut, every scar, every betrayal, every moment you thought was a mistake. It wasn't chaos. It was choreography. A twisted little dance meant to push you, shape you, break you in just the right places so you'd be standing exactly here, exactly now. The pain wasn't an accident, it was a scalpel. And the hands that held it knew exactly where to cut. Think back to the nights that almost destroyed you. The nights you begged for relief, for answers, for an escape that never came. You thought you were abandoned, left to drown in the storm. But every unanswered prayer was an answer in disguise. Because if you had gotten what you wanted back then, if life had given in to your cries, you wouldn't have made it here. You'd be stuck in the shallow comforts you thought would save you, instead of carrying the strength that suffering carved into your bones. You wanted relief, but what you got was resilience. And resilience doesn't come from luck. It comes from being thrown into fires that feel like hell, but somehow leave you standing. You see, the randomness you thought ruled your life was never random at all. It was precision, so sharp it looked like chaos. Like shattered glass, scattered everywhere, jagged, messy, dangerous. But step back far enough, and you see the pieces form a pattern. A design you were too close to notice. The heartbreak that split you, the betrayal that hardened you, the failure that humiliated you, they were all puzzle pieces. Ugly up close, but essential to the picture you're only starting to recognize. And here's the thing: if life had been smooth, if it had handed you comfort without struggle, you'd be weak right now. Too weak to carry the kind of weight your destiny demands. Smooth seas never built strong sailors, and soft roads never carved out warriors. The detours, the breakdowns, the disappointments, they were training. Harsh, cruel, merciless training, designed to strip away the illusions and expose the raw truth inside you. The truth you wouldn't have found any other way. You called it bad luck when people left you, when they broke their promises, when they crushed your trust. But think about it. If they hadn't left, you wouldn't have learned how to stand on your own. If they hadn't lied, you wouldn't have learned how to spot the truth. If they hadn't hurt you, you wouldn't have learned how to armor yourself without hardening your heart completely. Their absence wasn't random. It was necessary. They were removed from your path, not to destroy you, but to keep you from being destroyed later by depending on the wrong ones. Every failure you carry wasn't a dead end. It was redirection. You thought doors slammed in your face because you weren't good enough. But those doors weren't meant for you. If they had opened, they would have led you down paths that ended in emptiness, wasted years, hollow victories. You thought the rejection was punishment, but it was protection. Every no you received kept you from saying yes to the wrong destiny. Even your darkest moments, the ones you swore had no meaning, weren't meaningless. They stripped you down, yes, but they also revealed what couldn't be taken from you. They showed you the core of who you are, when everything else is gone. They proved that you could bleed and still breathe, break and still rise. And that lesson, that's not random, that's deliberate. So no, nothing you faced was random. It was all part of a setup too sharp, too intentional, too precise to be chance. Life didn't trip you, it placed you. It placed you right here, right now, in the only position where you could finally see the truth, that everything you thought was chaos was actually the perfect design. Pain positioned you for this moment, though you've spent years cursing it, trying to escape it, pretending it didn't matter. Pain is the great architect, the unseen hand that rearranges your life when you refuse to move on your own. It pushes, it tears, it forces you into corners you never would have chosen. But without it, you wouldn't have shifted. Without it, you'd still be stuck in the same stale rooms, breathing the same stale air, thinking life was about comfort instead of growth. Pain makes sure you don't stay asleep forever. It wakes you up with claws, not kisses. Think about it. Every time you've grown, every time you've sharpened, every time you've realized something powerful about yourself, it wasn't during the easy seasons. It wasn't when you were happy, safe, content. No, it was when you were bleeding, when the weight was unbearable, when the world seemed cruel and indifferent. That's when the shaping happened. Pain stripped away the illusions, the lies, the fake smiles. It made you confront yourself in ways nothing else could. Without pain, you'd still be clinging to illusions that were never meant to carry you. You wanted a path lined with roses, but pain handed you thorns. And those thorns taught you how to walk carefully, how to watch your step, how to respect the journey. They toughened your skin, not to make you heartless, but to make you strong enough to carry a purpose that would crush you if you were still fragile. People hate pain because it burns. But burning isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's purification. It sears away the excess, the weakness, the parts of you that couldn't survive where you're going. Without it, you'd never be able to stand where you are now. Look at the heartbreaks that shattered you. You thought they were punishments, cruel jokes meant to humiliate you. But if you're honest, those heartbreaks forced you to see your worth. They showed you who was pretending, who was lying, who never deserved a seat at your table. Pain exposed what you refused to admit when you were blinded by hope. It didn't break you for nothing. It broke you so you could stop building castles on sand. Look at the failures that made you question everything. They weren't dead ends, they were reroutes. Pain doesn't care about your plans, it cares about your destiny. And sometimes the only way to push you onto the right path is to let you feel the sting of falling flat on your face. Failure humiliated you, yes, but it also humbled you. It carved out the pride that would have poisoned you later. It taught you how to start again, stronger, sharper, more focused. Without those failures, you'd still be clinging to dreams that were never big enough for you. And what about loss? The kind of pain that leaves holes no one else can fill. You thought it was the end of joy, the end of hope. But that loss carved space inside you. Space for depth, for compassion, for understanding you never had before. Pain creates room. It hollows you out so you can hold more than you ever imagined. You wouldn't be capable of carrying the weight of purpose without first being hollowed by loss. Pain positioned you. It pushed you into strength when you wanted to stay weak. It dragged you toward clarity when you wanted to live blind. It tore away the masks when you wanted to keep pretending. Pain doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your becoming. And whether you loved it or hated it, it put you right here, right now. Ready in a way you never would have been without it. Delays were part of the design, though you've probably cursed them more than anything else. You wanted things fast, didn't you? Answers right away, breakthroughs on demand, doors to open the moment you knocked. But instead, you got silence. You got waiting rooms that felt endless. You got pauses that looked like punishment, but were actually preparation. You thought the delays meant you were forgotten, overlooked, rejected. But the truth is, the delay was the proof that timing mattered more than your impatience. You see, if you had received what you begged for, when you begged for it, it would have destroyed you. Because you weren't ready. Your hands were too shaky, your heart too fragile, your vision too small. You wanted the reward without the weight, the crown without the scars, the spotlight without the backbone to stand in it. That's the trick of delays. They force you to build the strength you'll need later, whether you want to or not. While you thought nothing was happening, everything was happening. The design was moving pieces into place. Not just you, but everything around you. Think about the moments you screamed inside your head. Why not now? Why not me? You thought you were being punished while others raced ahead. But that delay kept you from rushing into places that weren't meant for you. It protected you from alliances that would have poisoned you. It shielded you from doors that looked golden on the outside, but were rotting on the inside. You didn't see the decay behind those doors, but the delay did. The design knew what you couldn't know, that sometimes the worst thing that could happen is getting what you want too soon. Delays aren't denials. They're red lights on a dangerous road. They're barricades set up because the bridge ahead isn't finished yet. And when you finally get the green light, when the barricades come down, you find out why the pause was necessary. You realize the path needed more work before you could cross it without collapsing. And suddenly, the weight that once felt cruel feels like mercy. But of course, patience doesn't come easy. Delays drive people mad. They whisper lies while you sit in the silence. You've been forgotten. You don't matter. Nothing's coming. And you almost believe it, don't you? You almost give up. You almost walk away. But that's part of the design too. Delays test your hunger. They separate the ones who are casual from the ones who are committed. They strip away the weak who only want convenience, leaving behind the ones who are desperate enough to endure the wait, no matter how long it takes. Every delay shaped you. It taught you endurance when you had none. It taught you self-control when you wanted to collapse into despair. It taught you how to carry silence without letting it crush you. These weren't wasted years. They were building years. Years that taught you how to last. Because what's the point of getting something if you can't keep it? And keeping requires stamina. Stamina you only get when delays force you to develop it. Even the things that felt stolen from you. The job that slipped away. The relationship that dissolved. The opportunity that passed you by. They weren't really losses. They were pauses. You thought the delay meant never. But it meant not yet. And not yet is not the same as no. It's an instruction. An invitation to wait, to sharpen, to grow into the kind of person who can hold what's coming without dropping it. So yes, the delays hurt. They felt like silence, like punishment, like proof that you didn't matter. But look closer. They were design, not chaos. They were positioning, not rejection. Every pause was a part of the plan. Every silence was setting the stage. Every wait was preparing you for a moment bigger than the one you thought you wanted. Closed doors redirected your path, and at first you hated them. You stood there knocking, begging, pushing, praying, hoping that if you just tried hard enough the door would open. But it didn't. It stayed locked, cold, silent. You saw it as rejection, a slap in the face, a reminder that you weren't enough. But what you didn't see was the hallway behind you, the one you would have missed if that door had swung wide open. You were so fixated on what you wanted that you couldn't see what you needed. Closed doors have a cruel way of saving you from yourself. Every time a door slammed shut, you felt the sting. You thought it was a dead end, but it was really a reroute. Closed doors don't stop you. They steer you. They redirect your steps away from paths that look pretty but lead to emptiness. Sometimes the door stayed shut because the room behind it was too small for you. And if you had walked in, you would have shrunk yourself to fit. Sometimes it stayed shut because the people inside weren't built to walk with you. And if they had, they would have slowed you down or betrayed you when you least expected it. Think about it. The opportunities you thought you lost, the relationships that ended, the chances that slipped away. If you had walked through those doors, you'd still be stuck in spaces that couldn't hold the weight of your potential. You would have settled for less because it felt safe, because it was available, because it was there. And settling is the fastest way to die before your time. Closed doors rip comfort out of your hands so you don't bury yourself in it. Closed doors also expose what you really believe. When everything is open, when everything is easy, it doesn't take faith to keep moving. But when doors slam and silence stretches on, that's when you find out what's in your core. Do you crumble? Or do you keep walking down the hallway, trusting there's something better ahead? Closed doors strip you of illusions and force you to face yourself. They reveal your hunger, your resilience, your willingness to walk away from what doesn't serve you, even when you don't know what's next. And here's the thing about those doors. You don't always find out why they were shut until years later. You look back, and suddenly it makes sense. That job you didn't get, the company collapsed, that relationship that ended, they weren't who they pretended to be. That dream you thought slipped away. It was too small compared to the one that finally caught you. What you once cursed as rejection, you later thank as protection. Closed doors are mercy dressed up as cruelty. But in the moment, it feels like betrayal. You pound on the door until your hands bleed, screaming for it to open. And when it doesn't, you think you're forgotten. But maybe you're not forgotten at all. Maybe you're being guided. Maybe the lock on that door is the only thing keeping you alive, keeping you moving towards something that won't break you. Sometimes the greatest gift you'll ever receive is the door that never opens. Closed doors force you forward. They cut off the option of going back. They corner you until the only choice left is to move ahead. And moving ahead is where the design really takes shape. You weren't meant to stay where you were. You weren't meant to cling to people, places, or things that couldn't hold your destiny. You were meant to be redirected, to be pushed into places you never would have gone if the easy option had been available. That's the cruel beauty of closed doors. They hurt, they sting, they confuse you, but they move you. And movement, even when it feels forced, is always better than stagnation. Timing is the proof of precision. But people hate that truth because they want everything now. They think life should work on their schedule, bend to their deadlines, obey their impatience. But look at it. Has anything real, anything lasting, ever arrived too soon? No, because what shows up too early ends up collapsing under its own weight. Timing is the quiet proof that someone has been arranging the pieces long before you even realized there was a puzzle. Every season you've lived through had a reason, even the ones you despised. You thought you were being delayed, denied, punished. But timing was the invisible hand pulling strings behind the curtain. The job you didn't get, the love that slipped through your fingers, the opportunity that dissolved. All of it was timing. If it had been given to you when you demanded it, you would have ruined it. Not because you're weak, but because you weren't yet sharpened enough to carry it. Timing waits until you're carved deep enough to hold the weight without breaking. Think back to the moments that felt like cruel jokes. Everyone else moving forward, everyone else shining while you sat in the shadows. You thought you were being left behind. But look closer. Maybe you weren't left behind. Maybe you were being positioned. Timing makes you sit still while the stage is being built. You don't get the spotlight until the stage is ready to hold you. Otherwise, you'd fall through the cracks, embarrassed, humiliated, unprepared. Timing doesn't expose you too soon, because too soon is the fastest way to destroy something precious. The pain of waiting, the frustration of delay, the silence that eats at you, those are all signs of precision. Timing isn't sloppy. It doesn't throw blessings around like scraps. It waits for the exact second when everything aligns. The right place, the right people, the right version of you. Because it's not just about you. Timing is weaving together pieces far bigger than your own little world. Someone else's growth might be tied to your arrival. Someone else's readiness might connect with yours. If it all doesn't line up, the whole thing falls apart. That's why it feels slow. It's not just you being prepared, it's everything being arranged. And yet, you still rage against it. You still ask, why not now? Because you want the relief of arrival without the discipline of preparation. But timing isn't interested in your comfort. It's interested in your destiny. And destiny is fragile. It can't be handed to someone reckless, impatient, or blind. Timing makes sure your eyes are sharp, your heart is steady, and your hands are ready before it lets you touch what's meant for you. The proof of precision is always in hindsight. Years later, you look back and realize if things had happened earlier, you would have ruined them. You would have sabotaged what you weren't ready to hold. Timing protected you from yourself. It kept you from grabbing the fruit before it was ripe, from stepping onto a bridge that wasn't finished, from trusting people who weren't who they pretended to be yet. The wait wasn't empty. It was mercy, disguised as silence. But here's the twisted beauty. Timing always feels wrong until it finally makes sense. It always feels late until the exact moment it doesn't. And in that moment, when the door finally opens, when the breakthrough finally arrives, when the silence finally breaks, you realize it was never late. It was exact. It was surgical. It was designed to arrive in the 1 second when it couldn't destroy you, but instead define you. That's precision. And timing is the proof you were never abandoned to randomness. You were always being prepared for alignment. You were meant to see this now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, not someday in the vague future when you thought you'd be ready. Now, that's the part people miss, the precision of the moment. You've walked through storms, crawled through nights that felt endless, carried wounds you didn't think would ever heal, and yet here you are. And this moment right here, it isn't random. It isn't by chance that these words are colliding with your eyes right now. It's because everything that came before, every twist, every delay, every heartbreak, lined up to bring you here at this exact second. Life has a cruel way of making sense only in reverse. You never understand why you had to go through something while you're in it. You curse, you break, you question, you beg for answers that never come. And then later, sometimes years later, you look back and realize that if even one thing had gone differently, this moment wouldn't exist. You wouldn't be who you are. You wouldn't have the eyes to see it. You wouldn't have the ears to hear it. The setup always feels messy, but the reveal always feels precise. Now is heavy. Now is alive. Now is the knife that cuts through all the lies you told yourself to survive. Yesterday, you wouldn't have listened. Tomorrow you might forget. But now you're raw enough, tired enough, desperate enough, open enough to actually let it sink in. That's why this moment was chosen, not because it's convenient, but because it's the only time your heart is in the exact position to receive it. Timing isn't about comfort. It's about impact. Think of all the times you stumbled across something too soon, the advice you brushed off, the wisdom you ignored, the lesson you couldn't understand because you hadn't lived enough pain to interpret it. Those weren't wasted, they were seeds. But seeds don't grow until the soil is ready. And your soil wasn't ready then. It is now. That's why this hits differently. That's why you feel it in your bones instead of just skimming past it. You were meant to. The setup was never about convenience. It was about necessity. The losses that hollowed you out, the delays that tested your patience, the silence that made you question your worth. All of it positioned you to see with eyes that aren't clouded by illusions anymore. You couldn't understand this message until you'd been cut open enough to need it. That's the cruel trick of timing. It waits until you're desperate, until your armor cracks, until you can't hide behind noise anymore. That's when it delivers. And maybe you think you just stumbled here by accident. Scrolling, searching, wandering. But accidents don't feel this heavy, do they? Accidents don't make your chest tighten, your skin prickle, your heart race like someone just pulled your name out of the dark. Accidents don't whisper to your soul like this. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. That's design. That's the moment where the setup finally makes its move and lets you see what was hidden the whole time. So here you are, in the only second you were ever meant to be. Yesterday would have been too early. Tomorrow would be too late. And deep down, you know it. That's why this feels different. Because it was never meant for another time. It was meant for now, and now has finally arrived.